He was an Eagle Scout, a straight-A student, and a devout missionary. The kind of guy you'd probably let babysit your kids if you didn't know any better. Arthur Gary Bishop spent years building the perfect disguise: friendly, helpful, and church-approved. But behind the name tags and borrowed aliases was someone you absolutely did not want living next door. Today, we're talking about the kind of person who smiles at you in the grocery store and is also quietly unraveling into a full-blown monster. But before we dive into this story, if you like your true crime brief and bingeable, you're in the right place. Hit follow now for at least 2 new episodes every week. This is 10-Minute Murder. Let's get into it. Why is it that some of the worst people seem to come wrapped in the most respectable packing? The clean-cut guy who smiles too much, the one who always volunteers, the one you'd trust to watch your kids. Arthur Gary Bishop was one of those people. Born in Salt Lake City in 1951, he looked like the poster child for doing everything right. Straight-A student, Eagle Scout, deeply religious. His whole family was active in the Mormon church. And like many devout Mormons, Arthur didn't head straight to college after high school. First, he went on a mission. He spent about a year in the Philippines trying to convert others to the faith. After that, he came back, enrolled in college, graduated with honors, and landed a solid job as an accountant at a car dealership run by fellow Mormons. On paper, he had it all: education, community, a decent job, and people who trusted him. But Arthur Gary Bishop was hiding something. And it wasn't small. There was something deeply wrong with him, and no amount of church-going, scout badges, or straight-A report cards could cover it up forever. The cracks started showing at Arthur's accounting job. He was caught embezzling over $8,000 from the Mormon-owned car dealership where he worked. The numbers stopped adding up, and eventually, so did his story. But this wasn't some dramatic downfall. It barely even registered as a bump in the road. In court, Arthur played the part. He looked sorry. He sounded sorry, told the judge he was ready to make it right. And the judge believed him. Instead of prison, Arthur walked away with a 5-year suspended sentence, so long as he paid all the money back. And he said yes, he took the deal, and then vanished. Arthur cut ties with his family and disappeared into a new life, new town, new name, new everything. Officially, he was excommunicated from the Mormon church. Unofficially, he kept using the religion as a tool. He introduced himself as Roger Downs and leaned hard into the whole clean-living, trustworthy Mormon guy persona, and people around him bought it. Roger Downs was polite. He had a stable job. He smiled at neighbors and held the door open. He showed up at church, shook hands, made friends. But what really helped him blend in was how good he was with kids. He volunteered for the local Big Brother program. He earned the trust of parents. He spent time with the boys in the neighborhood, always under the guise of being a helpful role model. But it was all a mask. The first boy to disappear under this new identity was 4-year-old Alonzo Daniels. Every victim in this story is heartbreaking, but there's something especially cruel about what happened to Alonzo, and it started just a few doors down. In 1979, 4-year-old Alonzo Daniels lived in the same apartment building as a man named Roger Downs. Roger had just moved in. He was friendly and polite, the kind of neighbor who waved in the hallway and offered to help carry groceries. The Daniels family trusted him. So did the police. When Alonzo suddenly disappeared, officers knocked on Roger's door and asked if he'd seen the boy who'd lived just down the hallway. Roger shrugged, said he hadn't. But he had. Alonzo was inside that apartment the entire time. He was alive. He had no idea his family was out there desperately searching for him. What happened next has never been fully confirmed. We don't know exactly how Arthur, still going by Roger, killed Alonzo. What we do know is what came after. In the weeks following Alonzo's disappearance, Arthur began adopting puppies from local shelters, one after another. Somewhere between 15 and 20 dogs in total. None of them survived. He later admitted that he killed them because they reminded him of Alonzo. The sounds they made, the way they whined. He said it made him feel something, that it was stimulating. He strangled them, beat them, drowned them. He had hidden Alonzo in plain sight, just a few doors down from the boy's own home, and then he killed him. The violence against the animals kept him calm for a little while, but not forever. About a year later, he would do it again. Arthur struck again, this time at a roller skating rink. He approached 11-year-old Kim Peterson and struck up a conversation. Then he found a way to see the boy again, pretending he was interested in buying Kim's skates. The second meeting was when Arthur took him. It happened in broad daylight, in a crowded public place. People saw Kim leave with the man, but they couldn't agree on what the man looked like. Some gave conflicting descriptions. This was long before security cameras were standard, so there was no surveillance footage to help sort it out. The community stayed alert, so did the police. Everyone was watching for someone suspicious, but no one suspected Roger Downs, a.k.a. Arthur. Nearly a year after Kim disappeared, a man named Lynn E. Jones came under investigation for embezzling more than $9,000 from his employer. It turned out that Lynn E. Jones wasn't a real person. It was another alias. His real name, you guessed it, Arthur Gary Bishop. Once he realized he might be caught, Arthur broke into his old workplace in the middle of the night and stole his own personnel file. This was before records were stored digitally, obviously. That file had the only known copy of his address and personal details. And just like that, Arthur got away with the money. No skip town, no new name. He stayed right where he was, still blending in, still hiding in plain sight. Then he abducted another child. 4-year-old Danny Davis was at the grocery store with his grandfather. The older man had stepped a few feet away to grab something while Danny played with the gumball machine. Arthur approached the child. He offered him some candy. Danny said no. Arthur started to walk away. Then Danny followed him. Arthur didn't grab Danny Davis and run. He waited. When Danny followed him out the store, Arthur walked away with him like it was the most normal thing in the world. Several people saw them leave together, but the details didn't match. Some couldn't even agree if Arthur had been alone or with someone else. The police launched a full investigation. Arthur was questioned as part of the standard procedure. He was calm, polite, and cooperative. They had no reason to suspect him, so they let him go. 2 years later, in 1983, another boy went missing. Troy Ward had just turned 6. It was his birthday. That morning, he got permission to walk to the park by himself for the first time. He promised to be back by a certain time because his family was waiting to celebrate. But he never came home. People at the park remembered seeing Troy leave with a man. But again, the descriptions were all over the place. No one could say exactly what the man looked like. Only a few weeks later, Arthur targeted his next victim. This time, it was someone even closer. 13-year-old Graham Cunningham was getting ready for a camping trip with a friend. The trip was organized through the community's Big Brother program. The man who planned it, who had promised survival skills and campfires, was Roger Downs. Graham vanished just 2 days before the trip. Roger was questioned, but again, it was routine. No solid leads, no charges. Then things finally started to fall apart. Arthur, still going by Roger Downs, was arrested once again for embezzling over $10,000 from his job. During the investigation, police discovered something that changed everything. Roger Downs was also Lynn E. Jones, and Lynn E. Jones was Arthur Gary Bishop. The layers of aliases started peeling away. People came forward who had known him by different names. They remembered how close he had gotten to the boys in the neighborhood, how much time he spent around the community's most vulnerable. Detectives started connecting him to the missing children. When they confronted him, Arthur confessed. He told them that he had abducted 5 boys in all: Alonzo, Kim, Danny, Troy, and Graham. He admitted to harming them. Then he led officers to 2 separate sites where their remains were found. In court, the prosecution played a recording of Arthur's confession. He described what he had done in disturbing detail. He showed no visible remorse. At one point in the tape, he said, quote, "I'm glad they caught me because I'd do it again." Arthur Gary Bishop was sentenced to death. On June 9, 1988, that sentence was carried out. Arthur Gary Bishop wore a lot of masks. He was the good neighbor, the religious role model, the guy who smiled politely in the grocery store line and waved to kids on the sidewalk. And for years, those masks worked. He was questioned, investigated, even arrested multiple times. But no one saw the full picture until it was far too late. The boys he targeted were vulnerable in the purest sense. They trusted him. Their families trusted him. And in return, they lost everything. This case isn't just about one man's evil. It's about the systems that didn't catch him, the institutions that gave him second chances, the faces he changed, the names he borrowed, the trust he weaponized. Arthur Gary Bishop fooled almost everyone, but he didn't fool time. Eventually, the truth caught up. Thanks for listening to this episode of 10-Minute Murder, brief and bingeable true crime. My name is Joe. I'm the host. And if you're a first-time listener, a brand new listener to the podcast, or if you've listened to a few episodes and you have not yet subscribed, let me encourage you to go ahead and hit subscribe right now. It's going to help you catch up on all the back episodes of the podcast, and you'll be first in line, so to speak, when the new episodes come out. If you want to get in touch with me, joe@10minutemurder.com. That's my email address. And you can find the links to follow me on social media in the show notes, or again, at 10minutemurder.com. And I want to remind you that if you hear me cover a story that you've requested, that you've sent me a message saying, hey, would you talk about this case? And you hear me cover it here in this podcast, feel free when I post this on social media to in the comments say, hey, this was my suggestion, so that I can publicly thank you for doing that. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to rate, review, and share this podcast with your friends and family, anyone that you think could be into brief and bingeable true crime. And maybe true crime is not exactly your thing, and I get it. That's why I created another podcast called 10-Minute Mystery. There's less murder in that one. There's some. I dabble in some murdery kind of cases, but for the most part, it's about just plain old mysteries, things that are strange and weird. So check that out as well. And that's going to do it. That's your episode for today. Again, thank you so much for listening to 10-Minute Murder. Bye.